cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252-.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Pod TV's The Media Show, and Nick Pallavito will be your moderator for today's show. We're going to bring in our guests from the United States and around the world. First of all, Shaquille Latimer, who's joining us from Fiji, and then we also have Adam Lamparero, who's joining us from Lord knows where. I'm not sure where he's at.
Georgia.
Georgia, okay. And then I'm just going to discuss a little bit about our last show, which is the economic show, because we're playing around with TikTok. In case you don't know, that's the reason I had to email Kim, since this is the media show, I can talk about media, whether or not that was broadcast on TikTok. And the answer was yes. And how many people saw that? 14,000, which is not unusual. We've been getting some decent numbers from TikTok who will spring up and watch these things. It has a very different distribution platform amount. I've been playing with it myself. It is complicated. You have to get approvals and all this other stuff. I'm going to be working on it later on. Bringing in Mark Lee and also Dr. Sharif. I don't know if they've been playing with the TikTok boom here, but the numbers we've been getting on
TikTok, and actually I've got some friends on TikTok have actually been joining some TikTok conversations. Some they'll have panels, which are similar to Clubhouse, and they'll have discussions on all kinds of things.
Mark.
It's also a platform, hold on a second, that you can get into something that we get in trouble with a lot, because apparently on TikTok, you can have a whole concert, because I've been going into some people's rooms where they are literally playing off of their Amazon or Alexa playlist and things like that, or their Spotify playlist, and doing whole shows around R&B, country, or whatever they feel like playing. And so far, they're able to get away with it, and they haven't had any pushback from the music industry or others. I know that may change eventually, but as of now, you can do like a 3 or 4 hour what amounts to your own version of a radio station. Because I know there was a young lady, I think she was out of Atlanta, that was doing some R&B. There was a lady I ran into that I think was doing country music, and she might have been out of one of the country areas like Nashville or Louisville or something like that. But definitely you'll find a lot of people that are doing these very innovative conversations. I know one of the things that Kim liked is there was also a lot of political discussion, sometimes from the left, sometimes from the right, sometimes from wherever, and you get into these discussions. And of course, as Shaquille is in the same boat as I am, I think Adam's in the same boat, Nick's not in that boat, as neither is Rick, but as those of us that are single of different ages, you'll find a lot of people that are having like entire dating games on TikTok as well.
Rick's not single, he's happily married.
I said Rick, like Rick and Nick are not single. I've said you, me,
Oh,
and
not single.
Adam.
Not single. Okay. Well, I'm not going to comment on Adam's situation, but certainly for me, yes, I'm very happily single at the moment. I'll just say one of my other businesses, we've engaged a social media person to run some of the advertising for us, and TikTok's been great, and it drives people from TikTok over to us.
One question I have, because I've been experimenting here in Spain. And when I did the analytics, they actually had some pretty good analytics. They came 71% from Spain. So my question is, when you're doing TikTok in Australia, are you just getting like a lot of people from Australia?
I can tell you, and I'd rather discuss this perhaps not on the air, but I can certainly tell you that for return for dollar spent, that's actually been one of the greatest drivers for us. However, I would expect that to taper off over time. But yeah, that's been pretty significant for us. But let's just get back to the media issues. So we briefly talked about, well, not briefly, we talked about George Floyd before. I would like to know, are you Democrats now prepared to admit, given that there has been 2 books written by lesser known journalists, and now the great Jake Tapper has decided to come out with his own book, Original Sin, talking about the cover-up that he didn't possibly participate in. Are you now prepared to admit that Joe Biden's mental acuity was failing? Now, obviously, I wish him the very best in relation to his recent diagnosis of cancer. I certainly don't wish that upon anybody. And I'm going to give him one compliment here before you guys respond to my question. He's had a pretty tough life. He's had a lot of things that have happened to him, and a lot of very, very sad things that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. He's lost his son. I think he lost his wife and daughter in a car accident or something like that. He's been a fighter, and I hope he's able to fight through this. But that notwithstanding, are you now prepared to admit that his mental acuity was in fact failing and it wasn't some right-wing conspiracy theory?
Rick, that's for you.
Yes. And to Toby. Toby's come in right at the right time.
Toby will be throwing punches, don't worry.
Hey, Nick, one thing I think, though, before you answer, Rick, one thing I think we're missing the boat here about the TikTok views. If you notice, whenever I'm on the show, TikTok views skyrocket. So I think credit is deserved.
That's because you're usually only on when I'm here.
All right, so I want to thank my fans, and I look forward to continued discussions on this channel with all of them.
all I'm saying, the last show had, when Kim gets on, I know there's got a way to do it. I don't know how to screw with the system. There's some way you can broadcast these shows through TikTok once you get the license. And you can individually you can get the license.
Happy Memorial Day to my fans.
But
so, Rick, can we get an answer to my question from Rick?
So
what were you talking about?
All right. So we have a medical show. Dr. Patmos, who is a doctor, I think he knows his shit really well. A couple days ago, he offered about half a dozen reasons that it looks like Biden has Parkinson's. And I don't know, he makes a good case, though I don't know how they would have kept that covered up for years. And, Parkinson's, it's not great to have a president with Parkinson's if that's the case. But there's another aspect of Biden that I've thought about a lot, which is that Biden had good days, has good days, and bad days. So I don't think Biden has dementia, because with dementia, you have ups and downs, but it's pretty consistent that your brain is turning into Swiss cheese. But there's this thing that old people are subject to, which is delirium. And I've experienced with 3 family members. And that is when an old person in their 80s gets sick, gets a UTI, a bladder infection, or a cold, that can make them loopy until you, and
he must have had a pretty bloody bad cold for 4 years.
Hold on. Let me make my case. If you don't know what's going on with delirium, and we didn't, because there's a learning curve, you think that all of a sudden the person has advanced dementia. But then you take them to a doctor, say, well, let's check for UTI. You put them on antibiotics, and the delirium clears up. Apparently, your brain has a little leeway before it starts working like shit. And in old people, you've got almost no leeway. So any kind of malady will knock you into loopiness.
I don't think that the particular diagnosis matters. What matters is that the American public was fundamentally misled.
Okay, let me say that it's
bad. Are you willing to apologize on this show for saying that Biden was of high acuity?
No, I'm not going to demand an apology, but I'll certainly say this: if what you're saying is correct, that he had good days and bad days, and it could have been caused from a UTI or he stubbed his toe or whatever it might be, okay, a president who's that weak, you have the 27th Amendment for a reason. And I'm going to go back to my second favourite amendment. We all know that my favourite amendment's the 21st. But let's get back to the First Amendment. The 21st Amendment repeals the 18th, Adams. That's why it's my favourite. The First Amendment is about freedom of speech, all right, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, etc. And one of the fundamental reasons that the Founding Fathers of the United States put in for having the First Amendment, freedom of the press, was so that the press could speak truth to power, they could keep an eye on the government, etc. Okay? So the idea that so many people in the press, not just did they refuse to even ask any questions, but they tried to bully and ridicule anybody who would dare to suggest that, hey, that looks odd. That doesn't look like the Biden that we're used to. That's not the Biden who was the VP. And nothing happened. And now afterwards, what I find the most amazing is that somebody like Jake Tapper has the temerity to come out and say, well, we were fooled as well. We had no idea that any of this was happening. And what we should be doing as the media is we should be really, really careful, and we should be really vigilant about making sure that we check on the health of future presidents, including the president we have right now, Donald Trump. Where's his health records? I mean, the double standard and the hypocrisy is outrageous. And I can tell you what, I won't be buying his book. Not at all, because I'm not going to give him 1 cent of my money.
So there's a backlash against Tapper's book that's starting to build. People who are quoted in the book are saying, I never said that. But I don't know how much of a cover-up there was. There was certainly a shitload of complacency in the White House where everything's okay. It may have come from the top, where Biden, who is known to be a salty guy, may have held off, and his wife, who's a huge supporter of Biden, may have held everybody off, saying, I'm fucking fine. Everybody shut up. Get the hell out of here. I don't know. But the media should have been asking questions. It was clear to people, not just in the United States, but around the world. It was very clear.
Do you guys realize that Jake Tapper was a moderator at one of the presidential debates?
He was a moderator at one of the debates, and that's a whole other matter.
Do you believe that in this country they say they want to save democracy, but you have media propagandists as moderators? Jake Tapper is so full of crap. He knew what he was doing, and he got caught.
And these are the people that told us that Donald Trump was a threat to American democracy and, by extension, a threat to democracy around the Western world, and yet didn't ask whether the guy that fell up the stairs 3 times because he was blown over by the wind, or when he was over in Italy, was looking over in some distant place, and the leader of Italy had to go and get him, and all these sorts of things. The way that he, the way he behaved with the late Pope, etc. All of these things, and nobody said, look, if Donald Trump is this grave threat to the future of freedom on this planet, are we sure that this decrepit old man is really the right person to lead? And had he have won, he'd be there when he's 87? Really?
But to be fair and everything along those lines, there are doctors, including some from last year, that said that Trump himself, who is now 78, has less than a 75% chance of completing his term. And there have even been some cases recently where he has drifted off and done some other things that people are wondering about his own health as well. So let's be fair.
Okay, so let's be fair. Is it reasonable then for those of us that are not progressive lunatics to say, oh, that's ageism. Oh, that's just how he speaks, like you guys have been doing to us for the last 4 years.
Like I said, there's been, and Toby's hand up as well, but there have been people that have made issue on both sides, because neither one of these are exactly spring chickens, and it's one that is about to turn 63. So I know I'm not exactly a spring chicken. So that'll be in July that I turn 63, but I'm definitely younger than those folks and everything along those lines. So it will be interesting to see how this progresses as folks get older, even in this current administration. And yeah, there might have been some missed opportunities. As I said on this show, I think a couple of times, I had the pleasure of hearing a speaker, an author. It wasn't Jack Tapper, but it was another author that is based in Chapel Hill, and his name is slipping me right now. But he basically wrote about how there was a lot of misinformation and things that were done wrong by the Democratic Party. And that's when he spoke at the Cultural Arts Center that I work at. And he had our mayor, Leonardo, as well as the mayor of Raleigh speak, and they admitted that there were things that they should have tapped into that they did not tap into. So, like I said, I think there's a lot
It was
of
intentional.
I don't know if it was intentional. There's a lot
Jacoby,
of.
I don't think. Jacoby, I don't actually think we can hear you. I think you might be muted on your side, or you don't have a microphone plugged in or something, because we can't actually hear you. But while he's fixing that, Mark, I just want to very quickly say this to you. If you are correct and you have these grave concerns about Donald Trump, may I suggest that you must be so relieved to know that the VP under this president is actually capable of bringing a sentence together and having a logical thought, even if it's a thought you don't agree with. We can't hear you, Jacoby. I'm sorry.
I love J.D. Vance.
There's some questions about J.D. Vance.
There are problems with diagnosing both presidents. One is Biden's had a stutter forever. So is his brain?
Come on now.
Well, hold on. No, wait, hold on.
It's not about that. It's about the media.
Wait.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We've got you straight.
Hold on. So with Trump, wait, shut up for a second. So Trump diagnosing Trump has always been a bullshitter. So like when Trump says, hold on, when Trump says nonsense, we can't tell if Trump is losing it or it's just more nonsense. And the White House is currently like making it even harder to tell, because they're unlike every other White House, they're issuing trans.
Rick, that's whataboutism, a textbook example, my friend.
This is all blown out of proportion. And this is the reason why it's blown out of proportion. You have Ronald Reagan. Remember when Ronald Reagan was going downhill and Nancy Reagan had to cover that up and everything else? Yes, Ronald Reagan went through the same situation that Joe Biden did when he was in his final term of the office. That happened. Ronald Reagan nearly died in office. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't blow it out of proportion as if Nancy Reagan or the Republican Party was hiding some mental incapacities that, oh my goodness, that Ronald Reagan was not doing this.
Different severity.
Hold on. No. He died 2 years right after he was in office.
No, not 2 years. Not freaking 2 years.
How long was it?
Probably like 12 years. I'll look it up. Okay.
So he went downhill right afterwards, right? When he was in office, he was going downhill, right?
He gradually sank further into Alzheimer's.
Thank you for proving my point. He gradually sank. Then on top of that, we had Mitch McConnell, correct? Mitch McConnell fell down. Mitch McConnell was having some bad times. So we did have some issues with other individuals. So this is blown out of proportion because of that situation. Is it bad? Yes, we've had issues with that.
Reagan lived for. Here's the answer. Reagan lived for 15
I can finally
years.
speak. We had problems, yes. We had problems, yes.
Let me talk about Reagan for a second.
But wait a second.
Hold on, Reagan. Come on, because it's interesting. So Reagan lived for 15 years after he left the presidency, and for years. Hold on, let me talk about Reagan for a second.
Rick, you just interrupted me. And then when I tried to talk before, you told me to shut up.
All right, go ahead.
So again, let me finish my point. We just had the same issues with those same individuals, Mitch McConnell, Ronald Reagan, all these other individuals. Randall just passed away, and he was a former congressman in New York. Yes, age is an issue across the board for every single party. It is a problem. We have a problem with age in our society. Those are the people that we keep electing and so on and so forth. So when we want to say the things about Biden, yes, they were a problem. They really were. We've been on this show talking about his age repeatedly. And we
no, not you. We people like Adam and myself and Dan Worthington. Yeah, we have faith. Yeah,
Shaq again.
You all said we were crazy, but guess who was right?
We all talked about his age.
Yeah, it depends on it all the time. That's all you've ever done.
Hold on. Again, we all talked about it. Even when Mitch McConnell had his issue, I even pointed out to you, and you even agreed that one of the biggest problems that's going to keep pestering him about his age is because when Mitch McConnell fell out and had those stuttering issues that were horrible on camera, which you agreed, which were horrible. And we all agreed talking about his age. And the problem that the Democrat Party ran into is the fact that, again, that message machine from the Republican Party is great. It is phenomenal. So he was never going to get past the age issue. And then all these extra things that are coming out, I get it. They are a problem. And I'm not disputing that they are a problem. For example, when we talk about the auto pen,
you've done a pretty compelling job of making it look like you are disputing it, Toby. In fact, I'd probably go so far. I would probably go so far as to nominate you for an award.
Like you try and bully me again. As I said,
you've been talking for ages without letting anyone else get in.
Okay, cool. Sit back, relax. This is a TV show. So again,
it's a TV show.
Thank you. So then just shut up. So then it is a problem. But as Rick pointed out earlier, and this is where we get into a lot of the other issues, is the fact that with Trump, the current president, who we need to focus on more, especially now that we did have the problems with Biden that we're trying to say are a cover up, we cannot ignore the issues that are with Trump. We cannot ignore the speaking issues and the speaking problems. For example, with this right here that I'm going to try and share with you guys, if it is brought up, listen to the speech pattern of the current president, because we can relitigate and say, yes, there was a problem. Let's fix it and move forward. I agree with that. If you think it's bad that Biden was not able to run a sentence together,
becoming increasingly incoherent, as was on display yesterday at a roundtable in Qatar. He rambled for more than 25 straight minutes in a nonsensical
this guy's a psychiatrist now. Huh?
Sometimes when one is listening to Trump, the sound of his voice makes it hard to focus on the actual words. So I just want to read you a small verbatim transcript of just a section of what he was saying at this roundtable. These are the literal words of the President of the United States. When you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, the drone is killing tremendous numbers of people. You hide behind a tree and the drone comes down and it circles you with fire. You don't have a chance and the tree comes down also, by the way. It's so intense, you see these trees being knocked down like they're being sawed down by a top-of-the-line timberman, like, you know who? Sean Duffy. You know that, Sean Duffy, the head of the transportation department, who's working right now on the airports and getting a system because Biden didn't do a thing for 4 years, and Pete Buttigieg was the head, and he goes bicycling.
So we have to watch it for 25 minutes, or can we move on?
Can you believe it?
No, we're going to watch it.
He's running the biggest air system in the world, and he takes a bicycle to work.
That you've brought up,
and they say he's going to run for president. I don't see it. Who knows, right? But I don't see it. But when I look at what they've done, it's so horrible what they've done. And the work they did do, they wasted billions of dollars. They tried to hook up air systems to copper.
No credibility.
They tried to hook up copper to glass, and the glass doesn't work with the copper. And they had 30,000 different contractors doing 30,000 jobs. And when they put it all together, they spent billions of dollars. It didn't even come close to working, and we were going to be giving out a brand new system. It's very important. We'll have the best system, and we think we know who that system is, but we have a lot of bidding. We want one check. We want a unified system. We don't have 5,000 contractors and all different places, some digging ditches and some not doing ditches, because they want to go by satellite. Satellite seems to be the way to go. But so we're going to be giving that out pretty soon. But what people don't know about Sean, because I mentioned lumberjacks, that Sean, you probably didn't know this, that I'm not talking about this Sean. This Sean, no, not this is not. This is a different Sean. Trump is becoming increasingly
with sharing that with you. Is actually showing, trying to reiterate the point that
can anybody who's not on the left have a chance to respond to you at some point? Or are you just going to dominate the whole thing without letting any of us speak?
So again, what I'm trying to do by showing
now he's going to repeat it all
is to reiterate what Rick was talking about, earlier, how again
I'm gonna reiterate anything that Rick was talking about.
don't understand, and when we are talking, we don't understand how we complain about one, but then don't even look or even consider anything about the other.
Toby, I think you would have more credibility if you just said, "Look,
tell me how that was
wrong. Biden wasn't. Biden wasn't.
You have no credibility. I don't want to hear the credibility
But
argument.
let's move forward and talk about.
Okay, so can I respond here to this?
Instead of trying to play whataboutism.
Exactly.
I told
this is what. Are you still going? Let us speak. You've just taken up like 8 or 9 minutes or something.
I've said that what Biden had, what was going on with Biden was bad. I said that, stated that clearly.
All right,
but
now
you
somebody
can't
else
even
say
state that what's going on with Trump is bad.
Because the evidence of Trump's health decline is nowhere even remotely in the same galaxy as was evident with Biden.
Then
All
tell
right,
me
Trump,
how
wait, let me say something really quick. That what Trump just said sounds to me like a normal bullshitter with no message discipline. It doesn't sound to me like a guy who's losing his shit. It sounds like a guy who's been bullshitting for the past 50 years, continuing to bullshit. All right.
Fair enough. Oh, thank you so much. So it seems interesting to me that when you guys, Brent, I'm really directing this mostly at Jacoby, that when things are brought up about something that Republicans have done, Republicans have passed a bill or they've done something, and we say, well, that's pretty much that's how abortion works, that's what Democrats have done, etc. You guys come back and say, well, that's whataboutism, that's this and that's that. We bring up this issue about Joe Biden that we've been bringing up for years. And I was mentioning this before he was even elected, that he didn't look like the same Joe Biden that I was used to as Obama's VP. And that was met with derision from panelists here and prior panelists. Never wanted to admit that there was as much as a problem. Now that it's undeniable that there's a problem, and that became pretty undeniable really after the debate, now all of a sudden we're going to start invoking Ronald Reagan. We're going to start talking about Mitch McConnell. Now, I noticed that I think the audience should pay careful attention to what Jacoby said when he was talking about Mitch McConnell. He said that when it brought it up, I agreed that Mitch McConnell looked pretty bad. The optics when he froze up like that looked pretty bad. He was somebody of an older age, and he should consider maybe passing the torch down to somebody a bit younger, right? I said that. What I didn't do is what Jacoby did and start to invoke other people who are old in politics. I didn't start bringing up Dianne Feinstein, for example, who's, I believe it was subsequent to that event, died in office. Right. I didn't bring that up, did I?
Yeah, you did.
So what we're seeing here is this complete double standard. And then what you're doing,
no double standard.
The group of people that start talking about cheap fakes, notice that Jacoby didn't play excerpts of the actual things that he said. Now, when you read the transcripts, the way Donald Trump speaks, it does look silly and it does look funny. But what that guy just did, whoever that person is, that's not even unique. Stephen Colbert did that years ago. Stephen Colbert got one of Donald Trump's speeches and read it out like that, without the intonations and without the umming and ahhing and all the vocal expressions, etc. So it's such a disingenuous thing to do, Jacoby. And I'll tell you what, on behalf of everybody that I know, I'm going to nominate you for an award as being somebody who is so willing to try to defend the progressive point, even in the face of absolute defeat. You will not admit or concede anything. And I've got to commend you, because I think it is really impressive that you could actually be this deliberately delusional.
You completely missed the fact that, as Adam said, oh, well, Biden this. And I said, I agree. It was bad. I agree.
Yeah, and then you start talking about Ronald Reagan, dude. And then you start talking about Ronald Reagan. Are you serious?
Shaq, you're totally wrong. It's not just Jacoby, it's all of them. John Cena's like that.
Hello.
Comes on the network.
Can I answer?
All of them.
No, Jacoby, let Nick speak for a minute, please, so I can hear him.
No, because
they'll take logical points and they just.
I'm going
to. They don't even want to.
I know this, but see, this is the problem, Nick. This is precisely the problem, right? When people on our side of the political aisle across the world, when we lose, we look at it and we go, you know what? Like we've screwed up here. We're not in touch with the people. We're unhappy with our party. We want change. When you lose, it's always someone else's fault and no responsibility taken.
No, hold on a second, both of you, because I actually said that there was an author, there was a Democrat that actually pointed that out in the event that I was at.
Like I'm directing my comments to Toby. He's talking over you. He's talking over Nick. He's talking over me. He's talking over everybody. And he won't let anyone interrupt him either.
You stated that I defend all this stuff. When Adam pointed out that it was bad, what did I state? It was bad.
You then went about whataboutism. That's what you did. You try to say you're not going to defend it, but then you do everything you can to try to somehow rip shreds off the Republicans as if it's the same thing, and it's not.
And I finished stating why I brought those up. Because as I pointed out, I said it was bad. I said it's blown out of proportion because that is not bringing out of whataboutism. That is pointing out of why I stated that it is blown out of proportion. I am in agreement that it is bad. If you just want me to stop at that, then you have to learn how to stop with the things that you state instead of
no, not at all, Jacoby. But what you do is when we try to compare and contrast, but when we try to compare and contrast anything, Jacoby, you won't let us do it because you shut us down. You tell us we're lying. You tell us that we're manipulating things. You tell us you're going to talk over us because we're spreading false information or dangerous misinformation. You tell us that we're doing all this whataboutism. But when it's you, then all of a sudden we all have to acquiesce so that you can sit there and give these really lengthy, verbose explanations as to why it's different when your side of politics is looking bad.
In the 2024 election, who was the engineer of misinformation? It was the liberal media and the Democrats.
Give me a second to talk about
and the 2020 election and the 2016 election.
Let me talk about Reagan for a second, just because it's interesting, not to make parallels. Reagan probably was suffering from mild Alzheimer's the last couple of years of his presidency. However, he was surrounded by his team, and it probably didn't fuck up anything more. I don't like his politics, but I don't think the country was harmed by the early, the signs of. So anyway, for 10 years, come on, let me talk. Okay. For 10 years after Reagan left the presidency, he went to a presidential office built for him on the 34th floor of Nakatomi Plaza, the building from Die Hard.
That's pretty funny.
Which is awesome. And he liked the whole presidential lifestyle. He put on his suit every day, including the very day after he left the presidency. He went to his presidential office. Nancy Reagan had an office next to him. He sat there. He entertained friends and dignitaries, and he sank slowly, gently into Alzheimer's in a not terrible way. He liked the view. He could see the ocean from his office, and eventually he read the comic, the funny pages in the paper every day, and he became increasingly debilitated. And according to somebody I know who guarded him, by the end he thought he was still president.
We've just been through. Sorry, so I just want to respond to this because we've been focusing on Ronald Reagan so much. Ronald Reagan.
This is the Reagan, and then I want to hear your response to this. Can I get to my point real quickly?
I do have to go soon because I've got planes to catch and stuff. So,
but yeah, go about Reagan, and it was just a quick point. It was very quick, if I can make it. Thank you.
Go ahead. Come on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask because one of the things Reagan was known for, and even Nancy was known for, so maybe that's what we need even from Biden and from Trump and back in the day, was he was known for having an astrologer on duty. So John Quigley was actually their astrologer, who, by the way, was from San Francisco, not that far from where, because I know Rick's in LA and everything, but he was known for giving astrological advice to the president. So do we need an astrologer on duty? That's my question. And then
No, I can. I
can't answer that. Sorry, can I please just jump in on what I wanted to say there? One of the fundamental differences, right? Reagan, as president, was pretty consistent with the viewpoints that he had expressed earlier. Now, he was an orator. I forget the president the Republican nominee who didn't make it, the Bob Dole or somebody. But he was a great orator. He delivered some great speeches, and the political positions that he took from California, he remained reasonably consistent. Donald Trump has remained reasonably consistent with a lot of the things that he's talked about. Tariffs, for example. There's a video going around that went viral not too long ago of him on an Oprah interview 40 years ago talking about tariffs and talking about the rest of the world taking advantage of the United States. There is some level of consistency there. Joe Biden, however, as president, was largely inconsistent with viewpoints that he'd previously pushed. He went to the election in 2020 saying he was going to be a moderate president for change, and he was going to be, he's only going to be there for one term, etc. And he didn't do that. He was in no way was he moderate. And a lot of the things that were done just didn't make sense. He couldn't express anything, and he was clearly struggling to be able to explain anything in not just a coherent way, but in a way that was consistent with his prior speech patterns. As you just said, with Donald Trump, a lot of what he's saying, sometimes he looks a little bit tired, but what he is saying, the positions he's taken, is very, very similar and consistent to his previous positions and the previous speech patterns that we're used to from him. So I just don't think there's a comparison with Reagan, Trump, anybody else.
There is. The reason there was a...
You'll try and find one because it makes you feel better because it removes from you the responsibility of just admitting that this was wrong.
I let you speak. I let everybody else speak. I didn't say a word and you just talked. But now as soon as I say one word, you jump in. So please.
Yeah, that's right. Suck it up, princess. That's what you do to everyone else.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into this whole argument again because it truly shows who's the problem. So again... As I made the comparison, because as I was talking about it being overblown, because again, it is bad. If I'm saying that is bad, I agree that what Trump is doing is bad and his situations are bad. So it's not a difference of that. And the reason I believe that Trump's situation is bad is, yes, he's changed his opinions. However, yes, his speech pattern is similar, but his speech pattern is still bad and very, very he went from in that one little talk that they were talking about Qatar, going from talking about drones to ending up somewhere with Sean Duffy as a lumberjack. What sense does that make? It doesn't really make sense, but we're trying to force it down the way to make it make sense because
you're trying to force a comparison that's simply not.
I'm making a comparison that it's overblown, as we just did with Reagan, as we talked about. He did go downhill slowly, and as Rick had said that for him, he didn't feel like it caused harm.
Well, if it's all overblown, then why are you
now,
talking
Adam?
about
are you doing what you just complained about too? So again, I'm trying to explain to you why I feel that it's overblown. Now, is that you feeling it's overblown? No, but
I don't understand. If it's overblown, why are you showing a video of someone trashing Trump's speech patterns? What you're really doing is trying to mitigate Biden and exacerbate Trump.
Adam, do you want me to?
That's exactly what he's trying to do. That's exactly what he's trying to do, Adam. And to that end, Toby, what you were trying to do, what you were trying to do is not unique because you were complaining about this exact same thing with Donald Trump a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, and 5 years ago. He was still the president. You were complaining that he wouldn't give answer that stayed on topic.
I need to speak for myself. You're just going to tell me what I thought. Is that what we're doing?
I didn't say what you thought. I said what you're doing.
So, Adam, the reason I showed that speech pattern was because as it wandered and veered off into some unbeknownst area, which he does in a lot of his speech patterns, how we say that Biden cannot put together a coherent sentence, that's the same thing that Trump has done. And if we're complaining about how one cannot put together a coherent sentence while listening to somebody not putting together a coherent sentence, I'm saying both are bad. And if you're saying just one is bad, then that is an issue that you have. So again, for me, I see it as
it's how we had with you and me that the problem here. It's nothing to do with the progressives. It's us guys. We're the issue. We're the ones that are misreading things and blowing things out of proportion. You're gold. You really are.
The White House knows that Trump sounds nonsensical when transcribed. They're not issuing, unlike every previous White House in recent history, they're not issuing transcripts of his public remarks anymore.
Rick, look at when Biden was on the stage with George Clooney and didn't even recognize him. Compare that to Trump's bullshitting statements is, to put it mildly, comparing apples to oranges.
So there's been a lot of analysis.
They're trying to manipulate it and simultaneously mitigate Biden and make Trump look horrible. It's a manipulative tactic.
No, it's not. It's the same thing you've been doing for years. I mean, look, you've got this situation at the moment, Rick, where Pam Bondi the other day, the AG, we interrupted Rick. Why'd you need to jump back in? We're interrupting Rick at the moment. You're interrupting us.
If you consider one to be wrong that is doing the exact same thing, why is it bad to say that both are wrong?
Jatovi, because we don't believe the two things are the same, all right? That's the comparison you're making. We don't agree with
that. I'm asking Adam, not you, Shaq.
Rick, well, I don't care. I was talking to Rick.
I don't agree with the premise underlying your argument that they are comparable. That's why.
Okay. I mean,
Rick, politicians say things all the time that are sometimes
not in perfect shape. I get that, but the comparison.
That's all I'm stating is I see it one way, and I mean that's just a perspective thing, so I can understand that.
All right,
which is exactly how we characterize what you were doing to Toby. You took such exception to it, Rick. People say things that are silly all the time, right? I mean, Pam Bondi came out in 3 different interviews talking about how many fentanyl pills she'd taken off the street. I can't remember the number she gave. 10 million pills. And then she said, "Oh well." We've just saved 20 million lives, and the next thing you know, she says that she saved 250 million lives and something, and it made everybody, including people on the right, just go, "Oh, geez, what did she just say?" Right? Kristi Noem, who I really do quite like, was asked in that inquiry the other day, what is habeas corpus? Now, look. She's not a lawyer, so I accept her not knowing, except for in her position, she should know what that is. We've lost Rick. So does that mean that she's mentally deficient? No, she made a gap, and everybody makes them. I think the predominant difference is at least we can admit it. When our side does something, it's not my side, I'm not American, but when our side does it, we sit there and we go, "Oh, look, that was so bad. How did you screw that one up? You better not do that again." But when your side does it, there's an excuse, and then it's whataboutism, and it's like, well, if AOC said something different, well, back in 1943, some other Republican politician said something. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Let me explain, because as
you just comment to Rick,
let me point something out to you. At the beginning of this conversation, you're saying that I couldn't admit to this and I couldn't admit to that. I pointed out that I agree that it was bad. And then now you're on some tirade that there's some hypocrisy. When your side does something wrong, legitimately, when Kristi Noem went on and was asked about habeas corpus, and she went on some tirade that it gives the president this and that and the other thing.
She didn't go on a tirade. She was a succinct answer. It was a succinct
She answered very incorrectly, and she knew what she was saying. So it wasn't a mishap or a misconception, because you saw. So my thing is with that.
Hang on. Firstly, Jatovi, I didn't say that. You're mischaracterizing what I said, and I'll also just point out that the person who asked that question cut her off as well.
Statement. Okay. So when she said what she said about habeas corpus, and she was very serious about it, it wasn't a misstatement. It was what she was planning to say, because again, either she was trained to say it. She knew what habeas corpus was. She knew what habeas corpus was. But again, she also has somebody that she has to cater to in the presidency. So again, what she had stated was wrong. What is wrong with saying what she said was wrong?
I did say. See again, Mark, Rick Rosler's in the background. Jacoby, I never said that she made a misstatement. I never said that. I said that what she said was wrong. Right, but if you're going to start playing semantics like that, her answer was actually cut off, and I believe that part of what she was going to go on to say was under what circumstances the president would have the legal right to suspend habeas corpus, but she didn't get the chance to finish saying that. And you're absolutely correct, Adam. Her not knowing something is not the same as her having some mental deficiency, right?
I'm not trying to conflate that. I know that she knows
I'm not a big fan of Kristi Noem by any means, but I think one point we're missing, I hate to say this, but honestly, I feel bad for Joe Biden in a way, because how in God's name could his wife have allowed him?
Let's not jump to Joe Biden. Let's ask about habeas corpus.
Well, Adam, let me answer. Let me answer to you like this:
knowing something and not having the capacity.
Well, let me answer you a question like this. In some defense of Joe Biden, let me answer you a question like this. I think personally, it would be very difficult. You're only going to be in that position once in your life, right? Under normal circumstances, I think it's very difficult to walk away from the helicopter and the aides and servants and, everything's done for you and everything's amazing and, Secret Service and cars and going to state events and all that sort of stuff. I think it'd be very hard to walk away from that. And not just for her, but to be fair, I think that for your former VP who has come to Australia, thank goodness I wasn't there, to talk to our real estate people about real estate investing. I mean, I've seen it all now. So she's come over and delivered some speech up in the Gold Coast after travelling through Sydney. I actually do feel a little bit sorry for her as well, because what could she do? She had to defend the president, and she was just stuck in this impossible position. But that doesn't mitigate the fact that the whole world, and more importantly Americans, I think, were lied to, and they were lied to not just by the White House, but they were gaslit by a media who for whatever reasons they had, wanted to see a Democrat or wanted to see Biden or Harris in there, and definitely didn't want to see Trump in there. And I personally think that the damage that's done to the brand of the Democrats is going to hang around them for a very long time. And if you don't agree with me, Jacoby, I'll just say this to you. Even Van Jones is saying that.
Notice how Tapper's making a half mea culpa. He's acting like he's sorry, but then trying to justify it. He's full of shit.
This is for both of you then, because this is where I bring this whole idea that is, again, blown out of proportion. You talk about the lies this and the lies that. Donald Trump actually had a video.
Can't answer anything without bringing up Donald Trump.
Well, you said blown out of proportion. I could see what you're saying in terms of actually the effect it had. But what's not blown out of proportion is the intentional lies of the White House and the media.
Adam, if we're so mad about intentionally lying, that's our big thing. Intentional lies, cover-ups, all this
media to mislead the American people in a democratic election.
Or do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, you're going to start saying all the lies that Donald Trump says. It's not relevant to this issue with Biden. Donald Trump saying some crap that isn't true, right? Or bringing up some issue is not the same thing as a sitting president having mental acuity issues. And had he have won this election, had they have followed the normal process, and he had the debate after he was confirmed to be the candidate, and he was stuck in that position and won, there would be a very high chance that he could die while he was in office. I think the people of America deserve to know that.
Adam, right now, Adam, we have a sitting president that says there is an apartheid going on in South Africa. Is there an apartheid against white farmers in South Africa?
I don't know enough facts to comment intelligently.
Yes. Have you been?
No.
Yeah. I'm not going to chuck a Douglas Murray, but yeah.
That white people are being discriminated against and have been killed. Here's a question.
Here's a question, Shaq. Since you want to say that you know South Africa, what percentage of farmlands do white farmers own?
Jacoby, I'm not playing semantics with you
because you know you lost this argument.
No, I haven't lost the argument at all. Let me finish. Hang on, Jacoby. Do one of two things.
My point.
Jacoby,
hold on, Shaq. My point. We have a
Well, are you making your point? Because you asked a question. You asked a question. So either hang on a second. Either do one of two things.
Hold on. You said that you didn't want to play it, so let me answer the question for you. So again, we have a sitting president that is telling a lie. We have a big problem with what Biden did, telling a lie. So where's the difference there? If we have a
all right, well, let me answer. Okay, so let me answer that.
I just told
Let
you.
me answer your question. Excuse me. Let me answer your question. And firstly, when you ask a question, when we go to respond, just do one of two things. If you want to make a point, just make the point. But asking us a question because you're trying to elicit a specific response from us in order to then cut us off as soon as we try to say something is ridiculous. Just make the point and then we can respond to it. Now, is there an apartheid? Okay, you've said that. You've said that several times now. Is there an apartheid in South Africa? It's going to depend on your definition of an apartheid. Okay, but what we do know.
That is a complete lie. There is a definition of apartheid. So don't do that.
Sorry, can I speak or not?
Can
I speak on the issue? Like, I've been to Africa several times. Can I speak to this issue or not? Or are you going to once again be the expert on everything?
No, go ahead and finish it, Kill. You've been to South Africa.
Go ahead.
The issues that are facing South Africa are very, very complex. What we know is that not just white people, but also coloured people are trying to leave. When you go to Dubai, you go to Abu Dhabi, you go to many other countries that have more liberal and easier immigration policies, you see that there are a lot of young South Africans, like 20 years old, 18 years old, who are leaving South Africa in droves because of the political instability there. We also know that there has been an increase in violence towards white farmers and towards other white people.
That's a lie.
However,
there's no proof of
a
that.
lot of those...
There's no proof
You've
of
said that. Okay, Jacoby, you've said that. The audience knows that you claim that I'm lying about this issue. So now that you've said that, can I please continue? Now that you've said that, can I please continue?
If you're going to point out lies, then I will call you.
Mark, you're the producer. Am I allowed to speak, or is he in charge of the network?
Hold on a second, to Toby. I think he's trying to make some points because he's actually talked to those people in South Africa. I've not talked to him. I don't think you have either. So go ahead and make your point.
He cannot. We have the statistics and the information
You
on that.
don't know what I'm going to say, and you are calling me a liar about an issue which is extremely sensitive and complicated in another country. Now, you brought up the issue.
Yeah,
you brought up the issue, okay? And I'm not trying to be Douglas Murray over here, but you've never been there.
If you're going
all right, well, call me out, and I haven't even told you what I'm going to say yet.
Well, let him finish what he's going to say, Jacoby. We don't know what he's going to say, but having been there.
Speak. We got 4 minutes left.
Now, there has been an escalation in violence, one towards white people, but also just in general, there's been an escalation in violence in South Africa. It is looking like a significantly more unstable country at the moment. Now, I hope that they get past it. But there is footage, and it's real footage, of, for example, the leader of the EFF calling for, kill the farmer, kill the boer, which is a slang term for some white, not all white people. Okay? There is a lot of instability there. Now, if Donald Trump wants to categorize that as apartheid, and you're saying that it's not an apartheid, that would be a difference of an opinion. But for you to suggest that Donald Trump is lying about the violence that's been brought up not just by right-wing media. This violence was brought up by CNN, by MSNBC, by liberal media. It was brought up by Democrats that there was increased instability in South Africa and a few other African countries as well, but specifically South Africa for what we're talking about. Okay? This issue only became a big issue in your media because Donald Trump gave a refugee status or asylum status to a bunch of white South Africans. That's when it became an issue, and that's when you are now starting to act like you know everything about what's going on in South Africa. You don't, and you're basing your opinions on what liberal media is telling you.
This isn't an opinion, Shaq. The problem,
just like Palestine, Israel, you are an intellectual coward when it comes to these issues.
Okay, this is why you're an intellectual coward and a midget when it comes to defending individuals who are being abused. You just pointed out that, hey,
really?
It's also against, yes, you just pointed out that there's a raise in violence against not only white people, but also colored people or also black people. So you have the Africans and the Afrikaners. Yes, the white people are being attacked. So are everybody. Do you know who the only people that Donald Trump accepted was? Hold on, Rick, and you can shut up too. So do you know who the only people that Donald Trump said that he would accept was white people? He did not say all Africans there. He said white people. He then went on a tirade about, hey, the white people are being attacked. The white people, when it was even in dispute of what you just tried to sanitize when it's the raise in violence.
I'm not trying to sanitize anything.
So again, as I'm pointing out to you, you have tried. Donald Trump accepted only white farmers. He had that distinction within there. And if you're talking about an apartheid on all that you tried to just state, and he's only accepting only white people, but pulling visas and everything else from everybody else and blocking all the black and brown people, that is racism at its finest.
Not only are you mischaracterizing what I'm saying, however, just leaving that aside, the point still remains. We were talking about the White House, the Joe Biden White House, lying to the American people about his medical conditions and his mental acuity. And to try to bring a false equivalency, you've then tried to bring up Donald Trump calling what is happening in South Africa an apartheid. And all I am saying to you is that if you don't want to call it an apartheid, that's up to you. But if Donald Trump wants to call it an apartheid, he is perfectly within his right as a person and a president to categorize what's happening in that way.
There's a definition of apartheid. He's lying about white Afrikaners having apartheid.
So this is the media show. So let's talk about what the American public thinks about the steady stream of bad message discipline and nonsense from Trump daily. The American public does not have much of a problem with it. Trump started out with +7 net approval, and that sank steadily to -7% net disapproval. Now he's back up to only 2.5% net disapproval, which is higher than at the same time in his first administration, which indicates that a lot of Americans, nearly half of Americans, are totally cool or somewhat cool with Trump coming out and just saying, meandering.
No, it doesn't mean that. It means that they like his policies, particularly on the border, and that's why it's only under by 2.
Well, that's exactly right. I think performance is a big part of what people are looking at when they answer a CNN poll, which a couple of weeks ago said he was only down by 1 point. That's what they're looking at, is what is his approval ratings, and by and large, Americans seem to be pretty okay with the way he's running the country. But again, Jacoby, you can laugh and bluster and everything else that you want to do. We were talking about Joe Biden. You didn't want to. You just don't want to admit that his administration lied, and this is probably one of the biggest White House scandals that's happened in my lifetime, other than Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, okay, cryptocurrency.
The cryptocurrency, that's a whole other thing.
Cryptocurrency, the plane,
Trump
all
one,
the
and
other
that's another
stuff.
one. So there's
the dude lies, and you're just okay with it.
I did have a quick question.
What did he lie about taking the plane? He said, "I'm going to take the plane." He's not lying about it, is he?
The plane. We're also getting $1 trillion from Qatar.
Joe Biden would have given the plane to Afghanistan or something. That's what Joe Biden would have done.
Question for you, Shaquille, since I just found out recently that I know we're wrapping up, which is why Nick's here and everything. But are you ready for? Hold on a second. Are you ready for Kamala Harris to come to move there and everything?
No, we're not ready for anything.
She ain't coming to Australia. I can tell you that right now. She ain't coming to Australia.
I can be on the lawyer's den tomorrow.
She's not coming to Australia.
Be there.
But no, she's not coming here to live. I can tell you that right now. There's no way the Australian public will want Kamala Harris to come here to live. And I might just also remind you that your other great import, which you've combined with your own, the great Henry Mountbatten Windsor, him and his beautiful wife, Meghan Markle, the House of Lords are currently debating whether they should override the king and strip them of their titles. And as
They
a
should
staunch
strip them
Republican
both.
like I am, they absolutely should.
Poor
strip them
Harry.
of the titles.
Harry is
Talk about it next week because we don't want to interfere with our other television programs. Got 50 of them. Anyway, we'll see you next week on the Media Show. Bye bye.